What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video on the channel. In this episode we're progressing the VR38 block build a little bit more, and to start off with, here I am cleaning the Breather Valley cover. As you know, part of any engine rebuild, cleaning is very important, and because this particular build only has a few used components, I had to clean this out, which took about 45 minutes odd. And it was really painful because some of the old RTV was inside the little groove thing that you can see there. So it took a lot of scraping to actually come out. The inside of the Breather Valley cover had already been cleaned out, and I did put the screws back in. So now I'm going to take them back out, clean it, and remove any of the Loctite that might have been on there previously. I'm then going to reapply the Loctite and then screw everything back down. So here you go. Honestly, at this stage, it feels like cleaning and removing old RTV and old Loctite and things like that is probably what takes the longest time in any engine rebuild. It's very important to have clean components, obviously, if you're going to rebuild everything back to fresh and new. So, I didn't expect it to take 30 to 45 minutes, but it is what it is. Okay, so back over to the long block. Today we're going to be installing the spark plug tubes. We're going to install all the timing chains, cam gears and components, get the engine in time correctly, and basically do whatever we can because we are waiting on a few brand new nuts and bolts from Nissan in Japan. So here we have the front cover, or the rear section of it, and what we're actually going to be doing is replacing these paper gaskets with metal ones in the oil galleys. They're known to fail over time, so a metal gasket is a good replacement. And while we're at it, we're also going to be replacing the Phillips head screws that usually come with that, and we're replacing that with some hex screws instead. I'm not sure how many workshops or people do this while they're rebuilding their engine, but for the small cost of this little upgrade with the metal gaskets and the hex nuts, it just made sense to get it done. Obviously, with a paper gasket, I've seen them break, and you can do the research yourself, but a leak here is not good for anything. There's a couple of O-rings that then go in between the engine cover and the block, so here I am struggling to put it in while holding the camera or phone. That's the first of the O-rings, and here's the next one which goes in. Now that that's in place, we can move on to the next step, which is going to be the tensioners that go on top of the head near the camshafts. So here we go, they're installed. Next up is aligning the camshaft chains and getting them to align with the markings. So basically, the engine manual says that you align bank 1 with the circle dots and bank 2 with the oval dots. And you'll see what I mean when you actually do pull it apart and look at the back. There's markings which indicate it, so it's pretty easy to follow. The VR38 uses a lot of RTV, so here we are applying some more RTV to the rear engine cover section so we can get it on the long block. Here it is mounted, and there's about 19 different bolts that go in. There is a specific order for these 19 different bolts in terms of torquing everything down, but for now we started off in the center section and then applied the top and bottom sides, and then we'll torque everything down. It was at this point that we realized that the place that we ordered the timing chain from had actually sent us the timing chain for a different engine. It was probably a VQ engine. It didn't quite match the length that we needed, so everything basically had to stop, and then we had to wait for the new chain. Here you can see the circle markings that I meant earlier in terms of getting the cam gears aligned in their correct position, and obviously circle was for bank 1 and oval was for bank 2. And you can see that everything is now torqued down, and we're waiting for the timing chain. Fast forward approximately 1 week and we have the new timing chain. At this point, I was busy handing components over to be fitted onto the long block, so I couldn't record some of the parts, but we had all the tensioners on and the chain guides put on, and everything was torqued down to spec. For those with experience in these engines, you'll see that I don't actually have the water pump installed at this stage. That's because we didn't have the bolts for the water pump, but you'll see that later on in the video it does actually go in. We use some different bolts to mount it temporarily while waiting for the fresh OEM water pump bolts to come from Japan. At least with the temporary solution, we could swap the bolts over when the time came. So here's the water pump. It does have two different seals which are color coded. There is an order in which the seals are installed based on the color, and if you follow the engine manual, it tells you exactly what goes where. So fairly easy, and you can see here everything is done now on the front cover, and the oil pump is not in yet, or the oil pan, but we're waiting on some parts before we can get that done. But everything's all lined up, all in time, and now we can turn the engine over and just make sure it's spinning smoothly and freely, so you'll see that shortly. Hopefully I don't have to remove anything to get the oil pump and oil pan back on, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, here we are spinning the engine and everything is going as planned. It's all smooth, it's not catching on anything, so we're good to go. Okay, so next up we've got the breather assembly. So that's been RTV'd and bolted down, and you can see the PCV valve installed at the back as well. Here you've got the two knock sensors that go in between the block and the head. So they're all brand new and they've been installed and ready to go. Next up is the two top rocker covers. Obviously the engine gasket kit that we've got had all of the gaskets, for both sides. So we've got them. And then we've got the spark plug tubes. There is a specific height that these need to be installed and measured to fit. So check the engine manual, the guide on the height is there. So follow the manual to get the heights to the specs that they give you. You simply keep pushing them in or slowly, gently hammering them in until it reaches that spec. Otherwise it will foul your rocker covers. Then we've got the brackets that go for the cam angle sensors. So we've got those RTV'd, bolted down, and we've got the new cam angle sensors installed as well. This build is using all titanium fasteners from T1 Racing, so thank you for that, T1. Now we've got the new rocker covers going on with, again, all titanium fasteners for the rocker covers. And we're just getting them torqued down to spec. Fairly straightforward and easy. You really can't go wrong here. Nissan does give you an order in which you need to torque these down, but if you hand tighten them first and then follow the order to torque them down, it shouldn't have any issues. So follow the engine manual, you'll be good to go. So we'll get the other side done shortly, but this is basically it. We're now waiting on nuts and bolts to come through from Japan before we can finish the long block and get all the ancillaries bolted down. That's it for this episode, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'd really appreciate your support with a like and a subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.